I know you know the
No
drill, but
problem.
if you could just say and spell first and last name and then official title with the U.S. Marshals.
Sure. Robert Clark, CLARK, Supervisory Deputy U.S. Marshal.
Awesome. So, Robert, we're just going to talk a little bit about the details that have come out now about Cavalcante, of course, after his questioning, as you guys have learned more. I guess the first thing I want to kind of talk about is just what he was doing those 13 days that he was on the run, what he told investigators about kind of what his ultimate goal was, what his plans were.
Sure. So, yesterday afternoon, members of the U.S. Marshal Service, the state police, and county detectives went down to interview. He consented to an interview. He was not under duress. Our investigators treated him professionally and with respect, and I think he appreciated that. We actually got him something to eat as well, and he was willing to fill in the details of the 14 days on the run. And that's valuable information for our investigators going forward for future manhunts or future investigations. So we were very grateful that he was going to speak to us. One of the things that he said was when he initially escaped, he didn't move very far. He would stay in one area. It was actually 3 days before he ate, and that's when he found a watermelon on a farm. He actually opened it with his head. That he said, and that he drank from streams. So he bedded down for the first few days. Didn't move much at all. He only traveled at night. He slept during the day. He would take advantage of things that were easily accessible, things that were easy to steal. The backpack that you saw in that video, he had stolen from somebody's garage, and inside it was a razor because we asked him, "How did you get clean shaven?" And he said, there was a backpack in the razor. So a lot of people had speculated who helped him after he stole the van. Where did he go? How did this happen? Well, plain and simply, there was just a razor in the backpack. He said that law enforcement was predominantly everywhere. It was just day by day. He noticed more law enforcement. He noticed the planes circling above him. He noticed the helicopters. And eventually that forced him to move out of Longwood Gardens perimeter. But before he moved, he would surveil residences. He would surveil spots in the perimeter to see if it was going to be reasonable to make it. So he just didn't go on spur of the moment decisions. He had done a little bit of homework before he tried to make a move, but he described the environment as not so difficult to live in as Brazil, but the law enforcement presence was just dominant, and that's something he wasn't used to, seeing just more and more police officers everywhere. There was a time that he actually said on 3 times actually, that law enforcement almost stepped on him, or they were up to less than 10 yards away from him. So he was buried under thick vegetation, and everyone needs to remember that this search area was up to 6, 7 square miles. So long area. Even if you have 150 officers searching at one time, imagine sprinkling them through 6 to 7 square miles. It's a lot of area to cover. So he was very willing to talk. He said his end game was to carjack somebody. That's why he was intent on keeping that rifle. He knew that there was an increased presence in the second perimeter down in East Antmill, and he felt again that he needed to get out. And he said he was going to within the next 24 hours. He was going to use that rifle, carjack somebody, head north up to Canada, or possibly try to get to Puerto Rico. So we're very grateful that we were able to end this in the manner that we did. We fully believe the statements he gave, which enforced that Lieutenant Colonel Bivens' game plan was 100% accurate. That we wanted to surround Mr. Cavalcante, we wanted to cut his resources off, we wanted to make him make mistakes, we wanted to move him, and that's exactly what we did. We stressed him, so to say, as what Lieutenant Colonel Bivens said. And that's exactly what happened. We stressed him and moved him to the point. He made mistakes. We caught him on camera. Now, ultimately, that perimeter was not a wall. It didn't have ceilings. So there were places he could get across. I relate it to, do you think a deer never crossed those roads and an officer never saw him? Of course they did. Well, he was that deer sprinting across the road at some point in time. And we did the best we could. The Pennsylvania State Police had, hundreds of men out there. They did their job honorably. And, it's just impossible to secure a perimeter that big. But Cavalcanti did confirm that the law enforcement presence was overwhelming.
Absolutely. I mean, especially like when you have hundreds and hundreds, of course, at some point you guys are going to be able to do what you did, and that is just squeeze that perimeter. But kind of going back to the beginning, did you guys talk to him about the actual escape from prison? Did he say anything about, was anyone else at the prison aware that he was doing that? I know in the video that surfaced, you kind of see that guy that's over in the corner. It almost looks like he's watching out for him. Do we know any more details about that?
So our deputy marshals didn't talk to him at all about anything that happened in the prison or the escape. Our concerns were, or our questions were all dealing with the flight once he got out of the prison, where he went, who was helping him, how were you surviving, questioning along those lines. We didn't deal with any questions as far as the escape. Perhaps the CID or the state police did, or probably the county detectives, but it wasn't our criminal investigators.
Got it. And as far as people possibly helping him, I mean, I know that was there was a lot of hearsay about that. We heard, about his sister being arrested. So does it sound like there was anyone helping him through the whole thing, or was it really just him kind of, you know, getting away with it himself?
It was him all by himself. We played that tactical game of hide and go seek. He was a desperate man that just tried to survive on a day-to-day basis, and he was using the resources he had out there to try to survive. So we don't believe that anyone was helping him, and we thought that from the beginning. However, we were still planning. Could somebody help him? We had a team of U.S. Marshal criminal investigators planning, pre-operational planning for that what if scenario if he breaks perimeter, if he's not in the perimeter, and where we would go from there. And that plan was executed once we learned that he stole a van. And I think that's why we were so successful in finding that van, within hours and then getting right back on him.
It almost seems like he was kind of getting lucky in a sense. I mean, finding the van without the keys or with the keys in it. I mean, the open garage doors, things like that. Members of the public just not securing things the way they should have been.
Absolutely. He definitely had some luck on his side. Just like you said, not having the van secured or not having the van locked, keys in the van, entering a home where somebody shoots at you. He wasn't hit, being able to get across the perimeter, not being stepped on. So luck was definitely on his side.
I have to ask, do we have any idea where he stole the Eagle sweatshirt from? Is there more of a location on that?
So we don't know. What we do know is that he said when he stole the backpack, there was a sweatshirt in it. So we know that the green sweatshirt that he had taken was from the dairy farm truck. So unless he stole the sweatshirt from somewhere else, which is quite possible, it could be derived that that was the sweatshirt in the backpack that he mentioned. However, we're just not sure at this time.
And then I also wanted to talk about, of course, everyone's talking about Yoda, the dog, who was the one who obviously helped kind of make
Correct.
that final capture. Can you talk a little bit more about how dogs like Yoda are trained and exactly how he kind of went after him? I know there were a couple bites, some of the more details on that.
Sure. So I'm no canine expert, but I can tell you that those type of Malinois are highly trained dogs. They're used throughout federal, state, and local law enforcement all throughout the country. Yoda was a 3 to 4 year old male. He was a patrol dog trained by Bortax, stationed out of Detroit, Michigan. And that when Yoda was deployed, he actually tried to take a bite. His first bite attempt was at the top of Cavalcante's head because that was the only thing that was showing, and that was unsuccessful. The second bite was successful because it was in a lower left leg or lower leg extremity. These dogs are bite and hold dogs, so when they bite, they hold what they have, and at that point, the tactical team was able to move in and take Mr. Cavalcante into custody.
And then the other thing, also I saw he was concealing his own fecal matter even too. I mean, going to that extreme as
Yeah,
well.
he did say that. I'm sorry. To avoid law enforcement, one of the things we would do, we said, "Why are you going to the bathroom?" He said, "Well, if I had to defecate, then I would either cover it or disperse it into the woods because I didn't want law enforcement to track me." So that was a point that was mentioned also.
And can you just talk a little bit about his
And
over?
he did say that there was a time where I don't know if I mentioned it before, he thought about giving up. He said that it was just too tough to live out there. Law enforcement was everywhere, and the thought had crossed his mind to give up. And he also did say that when we were playing Brazilian messages to him from the helicopter, that he heard those messages. We actually, early in the investigation, we had a law enforcement officer speak Brazilian, encouraging him to surrender, and that he thought to himself, "Oh, they have a Brazilian working for him," but he did concede that he heard those messages.
Wow. It's just so much to take in. Did he say at what point he thought about giving up? How early on?
No, he just said it was, quote, very difficult living out there, and that the place is becoming overwhelmed with officers. So, again, that tactical game plan Lieutenant Colonel Bivens implemented, surround, stress, force them to make mistakes. We were 100% doing that. So, and on two occasions, we had to do it twice. We had to do it in Longwood Gardens, and we had to do it over in East Antmeal. But we were just grateful to get everything confirmed, and it was refreshing to know that our tactical game plan, the colonel's tactical game plan, was well executed. And this was a roller coaster ride for us. There were a lot of ups, there were a lot of downs. There were other times we thought we were going to have them, we didn't have them, and unfortunately, right before we thought we were going to have them, the night before we did, a weather system moved in, and we were thinking, wow, when are we going to catch a break? He's caught breaks through the whole time he was out there. When's law enforcement going to catch a break? But we weren't waiting. We weren't waiting to make our own luck. We were out there getting our own needs and not waiting for sightings. We were out there doing many, many things to try to bring this investigation to a conclusion.
Absolutely.
Proactively doing many
Absolutely.
investigations.
Yeah, absolutely. So much hard work from, law enforcement. The only other thing I think I wanted to ask is just kind of about his overall demeanor. Obviously, you said he was cooperative, but did he show any remorse, like for his actions? Is he apologetic at all? Did he say anything about just not wanting to go back
No,
to
we
jail?
didn't talk about the crime that he was sentenced for. Um, we didn't talk about that. He certainly didn't show any remorse for the escape. He was a desperate man trying to survive, and he really didn't show any remorse. He was just very calm, cool, collected. I think he appreciated our professionalism in dealing with him, and our willingness to get him medical aid. And we treated him like a human being. So I think that was well received, and we had the right interviewers. The Marshal Service has some great interviewers, as do the state police and the county detectives, and certainly the right people were there talking to him.
Right. Is there anything else? I think those are pretty much all the questions that I wanted to ask. Is there anything else that you wanted to add? Anything, final thoughts, putting a bow on this whole thing?
No, I always say that the standard punchline is the desperation of Cavalcante was never going to outlast the resolve and the perseverance of our deputy marshals and the law enforcement team that was assembled there. We were going to hunt him down wherever he was going. We owed that to the good people of Chester County who endured this investigation for 2 weeks, and we owed it to the victim's family. We were proud. The Marshal Service is proud to support Lieutenant Colonel Bivens and the state police.
Where does this kind of rank in the the different manhunts, the different obviously you guys deal with this stuff all the time, but to this extreme, I mean, where does it kind of rank as far as what the marshals have been involved in?
We're involved in big ones, and in my career, this is one of the biggest ones that I've been involved in. But I tell people that fugitive investigations, which is what we do every day, and manhunts are no different. The only difference is that manhunts, there's a lot more money and resources involved. Fugitive investigations, we do the same thing every day. Our task forces throughout the country, our regional task forces, our district task forces, we're out there arresting hundreds of thousands of fugitives a year. This was just on a larger scale.